people love Throwback Thursdays, but I prefer Thursdays for the Streakers Island Podcast. I'm pretty sure I already used that joke, but you know what? I'm getting old. It's okay to use the joke more than once. Now, it is I, Jacob Moore, sports analyst. We have Chazzy, the CEO, and Dan Moore. More for your money.
Woo!
And guys, we have an action-packed show for everyone today. The Four Nations face-off kicked off Wednesday night, and we got a heck of a game that started off. Then we're going to get into the NHL trade deadline, looking at some of the sellers, some of the buyers, Raptors news, CFL updates, and of course more, because we never want to make sure you're not satisfied. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Not that there's any money to listen to the Streakers Island podcast, or either way you're getting it back. Now, let's get into the Four Nations face-off. And first off, I want to say, we've only had one game, and I don't know if you boys agree with me. That was 100% better than any All-Star game I've watched in the last
Way better.
Like, players were trying, blocking shots. We saw some hits. Like, goaltending making some unbelievable saves.
I didn't see a fight.
No, we did not see a fight, but I mean, overall, that felt like Olympic caliber hockey again. Like, that was something to really see the best on best go at it, and those two teams did not disappoint. Now, Chazzy, you were right, so congratulations on getting that streaker coin, as Canada was able to take down Sweden. However, let's be real here. I don't think Canada's overly thrilled they let that game get to overtime. They were up 2-0 and 3-1 in that one, and especially the way they came out in the first period, they were flying. I want to say Sidney Crosby was best player on the ice for either team. But then in the second period, it was like Canada tried to play a defensive trap system, and being down to 5 defensemen, they continued to try that system. So, Dan, I want to throw this to you here. Like, why do you think Canada tried to be more passive than being more aggressive? I get they're up 2-0 and 3-1, but do you feel this game really could have been over a lot sooner if maybe Canada just kept the pedal to the metal?
Well, as people know, I like this saying, I have no clue why Team Canada did what they did. Not a clue. I think what I can say is I think it comes down to coaching. You know, Cooper, so many players on that forward group that I did not like were picked by Cooper because of his experience coaching them. And you can see this was a Cooper style of coaching when they got up 2-0, got a defensive role. Maybe that works in a Stanley Cup when you have one franchise player, but you're basically going with 4 lines of franchise players. And a 2-0 league with Jordan Binnington in net is not good enough. Let's be honest here, right? So I think it's kind of a wake-up call. It's the first game, kind of a wake-up call for the coaching and the players to never take your pedal off the metal. Keep constantly go forward. You know, maybe it's disrespectful in the NHL game, but you don't have no disrespect to him, but you don't have Ryan Reeves and Connor Dewar and David Kemp as your fourth line. You got an NHL's top line as the fourth line competing against you. So, yeah, I think that's what happened.
Now, mind you, during this game, there was times I felt the fourth line was what I said on the previous episode. It struggled. But when Canada needed a penalty kill, who was it out there blocking shots? It was Cirelli. It was Hagel. Jarvis, who played on the third line, who I thought had a pretty nice night. And those were the guys that really stepped up in the penalty killing role. So I think what Canada's hoping is the top 2 lines between the Crosby line and McDavid line, that's going to get your scoring. Your third line's your pure checking line, and your fourth line's your penalty killers. And it seemed, I think it worked to the way they wanted, although I think that McDavid line at times looked flat. I know Marner scored the game winner, beautiful assist from Sid, the middle-aged kid, making a beautiful play yet again. All 3 of his assists were primary assists, and all realistically just reading the play to perfection. All drop passes, all making a right move and a quick decision that a lot of other players can't make. But Chazzy, you and I were talking off camera, and we mentioned this in earlier episodes of the Streakers Island podcast. The goaltending for Canada was questionable tonight. Binghamton in the overtime stepped up, and I thought played outstanding. But let's be real here. 2 out of those 3 goals he probably should have had.
Yeah, that's going to be the Achilles heel going deeper into the tournament, especially when we get a glimpse of what Finland and the U.S. are going to be like tomorrow. But just coming back to this whole tournament field, the tragically hip starting off the whole tournament as a Canadian, that was quite amazing. Just like you said, it almost felt like the Olympics. And like those two lines came out flying. Crosby was just white hot, that behind the no look pass to McKinnon. And then McDavid, he was flying there. But yeah, they seemed to sort of like flatten out a bit midway through the period there. And I'm with you there on Marner. Is like, where was Marner? And then all of a sudden he scores in overtime. So but on the goaltending, yes, I think what did they get? At least 20 shots, letting in 3. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do in the next game.
I'll say that third line played really well too. You gotta give them credit.
Yeah, that third line I felt did what it scored a goal.
It surprised me.
It did it. The third line did its job. I wasn't blown away, but I felt it did what it needed to do. Now back to the goaltending, I think you got to start Adin Hill the next game.
You got to start someone else. Yes, absolutely.
You got to start Adin Hill, and more for your money. I see you shaking your head. Canada should have won that game 3-1.
Okay.
Goals. And no, before you go on, let me finish here. This is a 3-point system in this tournament, which I think the NHL's testing. Maybe we're going to see that next year. Same
10 minutes too.
Gary, if you're listening to the Streakers Island podcast, which you really should be, follow us on our socials. You need to switch this to 10-minute overtimes. And yes, Binghamton played outstanding in that overtime. But if we played better earlier in the game, we wouldn't have even need to be there. So I think you got to go to Adin Hill and see who's better out of those two to then start against the U.S. in your third game. I look at this Canadian team, and I think they're going to need stronger goaltending than what they got today. Yes, it was good enough, but Sweden also came out really flat in the first period. If Sweden played the way they did all 3 periods, I think more for your money and I would have got our streaker coin. Sweden would have won that game. But Dan, to your points, I know you want Binghamton in the net.
No, it's not exactly what I was going to say. Cooper said he wants to stick with one goalie for the whole tournament. I disagree with that. I agree with giving Adin Hill the next start and see who plays better. On the flip side of that, though, Jordan Binnington did allow a deflating goal. I would say 2 goals he could have had. However, when I said the same thing about Joseph Woll, everyone was down my throat about it. So let's just make that clear here, okay?
Okay, but here's the difference between that. These are apparently the best goalies Canada has to offer, right? And this is a very short format tournament where you need everyone to be on their A game every shift because one bad game is the difference between coming first and last here. So for Jordan Binghamton, when he was thinking Arby's for 2 out of those 3 goals, that's a problem. So I think you got to go Adin Hill, and then whoever plays better, and then let's say Adin Hill plays terrible, then maybe you put in Sam Montembeault halfway through that game, and if he plays great, then he gets the net. Like, out of those 3 goalies, you got to find one that can get you a couple solid starts. I don't think they're going to have to make 30, 40, 50 saves a night.
No, not behind that defense.
They're going to have to be able to make some saves when it counts. And speaking of that defense, it looks like Shea Theodore's tournament might be done. He did not return to that game, which is a tough loss. Now, I remember they can't bring anyone else, but they did bring 7 defensemen. So, I mean, you know, you're going to have your guys. And Kevin Biesca made a great point in the first intermission on that. When they're like, oh, they're going to be tough on these defensemen. All these defensemen are used to playing 20, 25 minutes a night. Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
I agree.
Drew Doughty didn't get huge minutes, which doesn't surprise me. Truthfully, I thought his performance was also a little flat on that second goal too. I mean, his positioning wasn't great. Yeah, Binghamton needs to have that save, but Doughty needs to play that better defensively. But
Doughty had some good shots, like leading the offense.
Yeah, but you're not bringing him in to lead the offense, right?
I know. I'm just saying,
Angelo, who's a 2-way shutdown defenseman. It is what it is. It's done now. This is the roster you got to work with. But I will say, just as our key points here, game was competitive, game was exciting, and I can't wait for this to keep going because I think this was much better than any All-Star game we
way better
by far.
Way more
got figured out now. I missed the skill comp, but besides of that, this is way better.
Now, mind you, I don't see why then, if fans say they missed the skills competition, Let's have skills competition we don't have a game on Valentine's Day, so they can all hug their wives and their girlfriends and maybe their mistresses. I'm just kidding. But maybe that's where you put in a skills comp for these guys, right? Because these are the best players, the best of the best from these 4 countries. So it'd be a heck of a skills competition.
I would say do the skill comp before the first game A tournament because all the players got together a couple days before. That's a good team building process.
They need the time to practice. We even saw that in Sweden. They didn't look in sync in the first period.
True.
So they need the time to practice. You look at Canada's 1 power play goal. That just didn't happen by them gaming on Madden or NHL 25.
Yeah.
That happened from practice.
Right.
Talking practice. Not a game. Not a game. Practice. But Canada's not the only team in this tournament. Coming up, we have Finland versus the U.S. So let's kind of go over who our picks are going to be. I'm not going to give my pick yet. I'm going to let Chazzy have the floor. America or Finland?
Until they prove us wrong, Old Glory, the United States of America. Just that forward lines, like I'm just excited to see that and see what they can do.
More for your money. What are you thinking here? Are you thinking that America is just going to come in here and just plow Finland over? Or do you think Finland's got a chance?
I don't think we're going to plow them over like a snowblower in the blizzard tonight, I think that Finland's a better team that people give credit for, but I do think America's going to pull off this victory.
So I also think America is going to win this game. Sorry, viewers. This is a pretty boring 1v1v1 here. But I will say the majority of the analysts are thinking America is just going to kind of steamroll over Finland.
No.
UC Saros is a guy that can keep a team in games, and I think Finland is the type of team they're gonna play it close to the vest. They're gonna check you hard, and they do have some scorers. If they get on a power play, Patrick Laine is gonna just get back in his office and pop one in. It's gonna be I'm really excited for the goaltenders in this one as we got Hellebuyck versus Saros. I think that's gonna be a real thriller in net. But I do think the U.S. will take this, but I'm predicting the U.S. forwards are going to be pretty frustrated. It's going to be a 2-1, 1-0, maybe 3-1 with an empty netter kind of thing. This game's going to be close.
Wow, you think they'll be shut down a bit?
This game's going to be very close, very low scoring, lots of shots, though. I think the U.S. might put on 40+, but I think UC Saros is a guy that's going to be able to keep his team in it, and Finland's going to get their chances because when we talked about the U.S. roster, they got skill galore, but they don't really have guys who like to back check.
Yeah.
So Finland's going to get their chances to get some odd man rushes. We see it in every tournament, something Finland is very, very good at. But let's move off the 4 nations and get into some Toronto Raptors news. Now, the Raptors, let's just start off right off the hop before we get into the Ingram re-signing. They really struggled tonight, losing 131 to 108 to the Cleveland Cavaliers, being outscored 41-17 in the first quarter. And that was, if you actually looked, if you look at the rest of the quarters, this game was close everywhere else. The Cavaliers outscored Toronto 27-26 in the second. The Raptors outscored the Cavs 35-32 in the fourth. And the Cavs outscored the Raptors 31-30 in the fourth. So one quarter basically ended this game for Toronto, which I think with a young basketball team, we are going to see that. As when they made some moves, this is to get their young guys some more chances and some more reps, but they're going to get some help by re-signing Brandon Ingram to a 3-year extension worth $120 million. This guy's having a pretty solid year at just over 22 points a game, around 5.5 rebounds and around 5 assists, shooting at 46% on the floor. So you know what? He's gonna provide some consistent offense for this team. So making the big trade to get him was one thing, but Masai Ujiri signing him on for 3 years, if you're a Raptors fan, that's got to be a positive feeling.
100%. Pop called it.
He did. We have a group chat, and he was like, "Yep, they're gonna sign him on, lock him up 3 years." So.
Yeah, he said 3 years. That's why
he did. So, but what I also think this does for the Raptors players, I think this is telling them, hey, we feel we got the right core here. So we're going to invest in it. Right. And they invested in a big name that's really going to help this team. So now you're going to have Barnes, Barrett, and Ingram kind of running your floor. And then you have guys like Grady Dick coming off the bench. adding a guy like PJ Tucker to add some size. Again, I don't know if the Raptors are going to be able to squeeze into the play-in tournament this year, but I do think they're taking steps in the right direction. So I'm very happy to see that. I think we're starting to see the rebuild take that next step. Chazzy, probably the same way you have felt as a Habs fan the last couple of years, right? The last couple of years before felt like a struggle. So maybe you can talk about, as a fan, how does that feel when you finally see the team starting to progress in the right direction?
Yeah, no, I think the initial reaction of the fans was like a C plus of moving so many players and getting Ingram back. He's sort of injury prone a little bit. He's been out, since the beginning of December 7th or something like that, with an ankle sprain. But I think after hearing what the GM had to say and sort of the reason behind it, like you said, their core three, but also you got Quigley there too, right? So good starting five. We'll see what it sounds like. Barnes or Barrett was part of the news conference today. So sort of it sounds like that core three, core four is there's some chemistry there. So as a fan, yeah, you got to be excited that you're bringing in a guy that can score and be a two-way player. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think as a Raptor fan, you got to be excited. You think this is a move that's saying we're finally turning the corner. Right? I think that's saying that, look, we feel we have the right pieces here. Now, if this team can just learn how to defend, then we're getting somewhere with them. But I do, since we're talking NBA still, and I'm wearing the classic Air Jordan hoodie, I want to talk about the NBA All-Star and more specifically the slam dunk competition. So that's coming up.
I was looking at the list, like, who is in that?
That's the issue. There are now, ever since, I would argue, since after the Vince Carter era, and maybe the Dwight Howard era, we're not seeing the superstars willing to do it.
Can Vince Carter come out of retirement and do it? That'll be more interesting. And people
still got some hops. So,
but what is the reasoning? What is the reasoning not going in the slam? That's what us fans want. Like we're like eating popcorn, just glued to what they're gonna do.
So what it is, the players say it hurts their hand to do the dunks.
Boo.
So, like, you think about when Vince Carter stuck his whole armpit in through the rim at that velocity, that's gotta hurt. Let's just be honest. But at the same time, you're being paid. Look at Brandon Ingram here, $40 million a year.
Yeah.
So I mean, then he's not even going to be at the top towards what these guys are making. Suck it up. I almost think the NBA's got to work something out in the next CBA where they're saying, look, players are required unless they're hurt. They got to go in these competitions. Or we got to scrap it and move on and find something new. I was joking with More for Your Money the other day saying, let's just do flag football against the NFL and get rid of the Pro Bowl and the NBA All-Star Weekend. That would be more entertaining than the crap we're seeing now. Because let's be honest, or turn it into what NHL's done and do America versus the World All-Star game. At least then you got some pride. You're playing for your country. They got to do something because what's happening, and do the same thing for the skills competition. Is what's happening now is we're seeing even basketball is already losing TV ratings and attendance. And it's just going to keep getting worse if they don't do something, I would argue, ASAP, because it's just not exciting anymore. And this All-Star weekend is frankly becoming a joke. The three-point contest is the only thing that's entertaining. And then, hell, sometimes we get players in the WNBA who can do it better than the guys in the NBA can. Look at Caitlin Clark, right? Like, she's hitting threes better than Steph Curry is now. So they got it. Maybe we need to, I don't know if we got to incorporate the WNBA more, as now that's becoming bigger and more successful. Plus, the NBA is invested in that league, so it would make a lot of sense for both sides. Something's got to give.
I just thought of a brilliant. Oh, sorry, Chazzy, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just thought of a brilliant idea that can fix the slam dunk competition. If we're inviting the WNBAs, like what they're called, if we're inviting them for the 3-pointers. Let's invite the NCAA players to do the slam dunk competition. Boom! I like to see the future of the league.
That'd be more exciting. At least
that's a good idea.
Put in an effort. And I'd argue some of these guys might be better than some of the rookies that are coming in the NBA right now.
But isn't that McCluggan or from the Magic? Isn't he a back and forth player? And he's won this thing the last couple of years.
I mean, he's back and forth, I believe, between the NBA and the G League.
Yeah.
It's basically like, imagine if we had the NHL All-Star competition, but it was all AHL players.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's no disrespect to these guys in the G League, but something's got to change.
So one thing I don't like about their format, so they go with the 4 teams, which is great, and it sounds like the one team is going to be the rookies, I guess, the first and second year players, with some two-way players. But why make it a point ceiling where it's the first to 40 points? Make it time. I don't find that points as exciting as, okay, you're playing 4 10-minute quarters or 4 8-minute quarters. Other than making a ceiling of 40 points, I just don't find the reasoning how that makes it more exciting for the fans when it's like the first one to 40.
I agree with you, Jazzy, 100%.
So do I. I think the NBA really needs to relook their All-Star game and their realistically the whole weekend. It's not as much of a joke as the Pro Bowl weekend is, but it's getting there.
Well, you didn't like the in the Pro Bowl when they get to jump in the with the bin?
No, what bothered me the most is basically playing like a match-it game, like they're looking for their Girl Scout cookies. Like, come on. Like, we got to make it entertaining, and they're expecting fans to pay big money to go to this crap. It's ridiculous. Like, who is going to spend real money to go watch players not try? Like, sure, everyone was complaining the Four Nations tickets are expensive, but we just saw some of the best hockey we've seen all season.
Oh, it's incredible.
I go to an NBA All-Star game. I'm paying $200-300 for a ticket, $30 for a beer, $20 for a hot dog, and I'm watching crap. I may as well go to a high school game and watch that instead. It's just unacceptable, and the NBA needs to make a change, and I say they need to make it now. All capital letters, couple exclamation points.
As Sai says, right now.
But you know what we need to do right now? We need to go to a break. So we'll be right back, and when we come back, we're going to get into some new CFL news plus some NHL headlines. We'll be right back right after this commercial break.
Come on in. Oh, there's an opportunity knocking right there. All right, Streakers.
More for your money.
Big news.
Yeah.
We have more for your money. Joining the Streakers Nation and the team. It takes a village to do something that we want to pull off. We're so excited. So download the latest Streakers app. Watch for the updates. Watch for more happening. Coming for more for your money. Let's go streaking.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Streakers Island podcast. Make sure you follow Streakers Island all over social medias. I'm talking Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Those are our main ones. So please make sure you give us a follow and check out the Streakers Gaming app. Best fantasy app on the market. Make sure you get in there. Free to play. Always earn. Never lose. Now let's get into the Canadian Football League and what's going on there. And free agency window officially opened up on Tuesday where the players can actually officially sign. And it's been busy. Let's start off with the Toronto Argos, which probably the biggest surprise, re-signed Kadeem Carey.
I called it.
Dan, you did call it. I didn't think they were going to do it because I didn't think they could fill the rest of the positions that they needed. But apparently Pinball just got his pinball magic and he's done it. So they've re-signed Kadeem Carey. They've added Christmas to the D-line. Anthony Lanier to the D-line. We're bringing back Cameron Dukes.
Dude.
We've added Clayton Evans to the defensive backs and Herjay Myalja to the wide receiving core. I got to say, I was a little worried when the Argos let go of some of their big pieces, like Serezna and Amos.
Yeah.
But now I look at the guys they just brought in, and they brought in some more really talented guys. Clayton Evans has had a lot of success in both Montreal and Saskatchewan. Myala is a great wide receiver, and he's Canadian, so that's going to help with your ratio. Yeah. Anthony Lanier, he's had injury problems, but so did Kadeem Carey before coming to Toronto. I think this is a great risk-reward play. So overall, I don't think the Argos are losing as much as what the fan base feels like they are. I think you brought in some talented guys who can replace those roles. And you still have Wynton McManus in the leadership group, and you brought in Cameron Judge as well to really center off that linebacker core. So, no, I personally think the Argos, that D-line might not be as dominant, but it depends. Christmas and Lanier could both have phenomenal years. I think in Toronto, when they're structured, Toronto loves to blitz, so I could see these guys doing really well. But more for your money, I want those to you as another Argo fan. How are you feeling right now? Do you feel this team still got worse after they've replaced some of the positions that they lost, or are you still feeling confident?
I feel pumped. I think winning the three quarterbacks back. Wow, that's a tongue twister. But a great move. They work well together. They gel well together. They kept over 500 record when Kelly was out. Great move. And I would argue his team got a little bit better because I don't think the defense got much weaker, but the offense got a lot stronger. You look at that year, they had the dominant year 2 years ago. They had the two-headed monsters at running back in Ouellette and Harris. And now with Brown coming off an injury year, but he's had some great years in the past, and Kadeem Carey coming off a 1,000-yard last year, you got a double-hit monster back end again. And so I think that's why the offense is even stronger. Cameron Dukes on quarterbacks are going to get more experience, and I'm feeling pretty good as an Argos fan.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think that the Blue Nation's got to kind of they're upset about losing guys like Sresner. I get it, but I think you got to take a chill. I think Pinball's done a nice job at refilling these roles, retooling the roster. And when you're talking about the two-headed monster at running back, I'm going to say the three-headed monster at running backs. You have Devontae McMahon, he's a sneaky guy. Like, and you saw in that Grey Cup game, I can think of one of the second and after a big sack, and it was like 2nd and 17, and it's a little check down throw that next thing you know, on the open field, he's turning into a first down.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they're going to move McMahon as a wide receiver.
That is a possibility. Or you still use him and you use him as a back, but more for the screen passes because the guy's got so much speed, and you don't need to use Janarian Grant for those screen passes, which is going to keep him fresher for making some kick returns.
Yeah.
But Toronto wasn't the only team that made some moves. The Calgary Stampeders also picked up a couple more guys. Picking up Miles Brown, really solid defensive lineman out of Edmonton, and Damon Webb, a really, really good defensive back out of Ottawa. Yeah, this is the signing, Chazzy. You must have been so happy to see this one, just really solidifying that defense.
Oh, yeah, we keep getting more excited about that offense, but now look at the defense just bolstered right up with these two signings.
Yeah, I got to agree with you 100%. I'm looking at that. You're really – and you think about that defensive line. You got Miles Brown and Flo attacking. That's going to create some pressure, which is going to throw some passes that aren't going to be great. Then you bring in a guy like Damon Webb, who got 3 interceptions against our Argos in one game. He's going to be a difference maker for Calgary. Calgary is bringing in some more difference maker guys. We kept saying that last year. They're just one play away from winning a game. They're just one play away. They need one big move, and they've done it. They went and bolstered the offense, bolstered the defense. They did lose Peyton Logan for kick returns, so that's going to hurt them a bit. But I'm sure you could find a guy with some speed that's going to be able to fill that role. But for Dave Dickenson, this might be his last chance as head coach. The last 2 years for Calgary have been tough. I give the Stampeders fan base a lot of credit because they've hung with their team. But Dave Dickenson has to make this team work because I feel he has the pieces now. The last couple of years, I'm like, he doesn't have a great quarterback. Besides Bengleton, the receiving core kind of sucks. The defense doesn't, besides a Cameron Judge and Micah Alway, didn't have a lot of playmakers. Well, now you have playmakers on the defense and the offense and the defensive line. I don't think there's an excuse now. More for your money, what are your thoughts there? Do you think that for Dave Dickenson, he's really got to make this work, or else he might be getting kicked out of the door like a punt?
100%. I think it's just his last chance. There's been a lot of native backslash on Dave Dickenson lately this offseason after guys like Kadeem Carey vocaling how bad it was in Calgary when he was there before, which was pretty Controversial, but that's how confident he was winning as Argo. But now that that's out there, I think, yeah, he's weighing out excuses, but winning in VA and having sets a good overall better team. And Calgary is behind in the stadium. They need a new stadium. They need money to build a stadium. They need some playoff attendance tickets, butts, and seats to whack them. Like, all butts and seats in the CFL. That's how they make their income. Like, they need to make a couple playoff ones to make that income to make a new stadium.
And I'm going to say, too, I think for Calgary, let's get into the stadium here a little bit. They got to work with the Calgary Flames. I think you got to build some kind of entertainment district that they've been talking about. The city of Calgary really wants it. They love their sports in Calgary. And then also, too, then build the district and then call the NBA up and say, hey, you want to put a second end basketball team in Canada? We got the facility to do it, right? And then and try to get more sports in there. Get lacrosse into a better stadium and just get the Barns more excited. And I think that's going to bring a lot more oomph to Calgary, and not just for sports, but as a city in general. I think Calgary wants to become a bigger and more exciting city, and adding a sports district. We see it in Toronto, having the Leafs, Argos, and Blue Jays all on one train line makes that city bumping. It makes it exciting, right? We see it in Vancouver where you have the Vancouver Canucks all winter, and then the BC Lions all spring and summer. So it's adding that excitement to those cities. I think Calgary could have that if they just put it in the right areas. Same with the Ottawa Senators. They got to get those Sens downtown. But speaking of the Ottawa region, they are not bringing back Jeremiah Masoli because the BC Lions picked him up. I absolutely love this move for BC, and I'm going to tell you boys why, and everyone else.
Why, Jacob? Why?
Well, let me tell you a little story about a quarterback named Nathan Rourke. Nathan Rourke was dominant in the CFL his first year as a starter, then went to the NFL and practiced holding a clipboard. If I ran the circus. Did not work out for him in the NFL whatsoever. I do partially blame the NFL's lack of respect for the CFL in general.
He missed his big balls.
It didn't work. And then he comes back to the CFL, and it didn't work again. He really struggled last year. He had his moments where it started to look like he was getting going, but it got to the point where he lost the starting job for the playoff game to Vernon Adams Jr. So I think what BC wants is a backup quarterback that they feel is more than serviceable, who's a good backup quarterback, but isn't going to start the controversy like we might see in Montreal and we might see in Edmonton. And Jeremiah Masoli's the guy for that.
So between both the NFL and the CFL, what was the biggest difference that he couldn't come back from that you felt? Was it just the speed of the game or just the quarterback position of just the difference of both leagues?
I would say a little bit of both of those. I feel in the CFL with the bigger field and everything, you have a little more time to make your reads, and I felt his reads were rushed. Because in the NFL, in the shorter field, these guys sometimes are hitting their routes pretty quick. The NFL is a lot about those 3 to 5 yard quick routes, where the CFL was more of those 7 to 15 yards. Because remember, you only got 3 downs.
Yeah, 3 downs.
You're trying to jump down the field a lot quicker. There were times where I'm like, if Nathan Rourke just maybe held on to the ball a little bit longer and didn't get rid of it right away, as much as before in the CFL, that's where he had his success. I also feel it was I think he was rusty. He hadn't really played a meaningful game in 3 years. And it showed. You saw it in the one preseason game he played in the NFL as well. But that year he went back to the CFL. Wasn't good. He just didn't look ready to go. And I even questioned it back then before we had the show. Should have he went to the XFL for a season and then tried to get back onto an NFL roster, as he would have had that year of playing American style football. But as much as the Lions aren't going to admit it, they got to be a little uneasy. So bringing in Jeremiah Masoli, you can breathe a little bit easier. He's a proven quarterback who has had injury problems, but he was able to stay healthy last year for Ottawa and put up some pretty decent numbers. Had 2 games of over 300 yards. He's a mobile quarterback with a good arm strength, and he's going to have a full training camp healthy to really get ready. So I think if you're BC, I think if you're a Lions fan, you're very happy with this signing. And I think if you're a Lions player, you're also very happy with this signing.
You think I'll make York a little nervous?
I don't, because it's not like the Edmonton or Montreal situation where you're bringing in backups who arguably might be better than your starters.
Right, true.
It's like in Montreal, you're bringing in McLeod Buffalo-Thompson, a multi-Grey Cup winner.
Yeah.
And in Edmonton, you're bringing in Cody Fajardo, who just won a Grey Cup 2 years ago and was the Grey Cup MOP.
What a crazy trade.
So it's one of those things, both of those quarterbacks. It's sort of like when you see it in hockey where they have two starting goalies. If those tandems don't quite work, it can really add that pressure. And I think it's the same thing it could happen in those situations where I think BC, you're bringing in a good backup, sort of like Toronto, a good backup, but you know who your starter is. So yeah. I think that was a brilliant signing by BC. It's just adding that depth without that pressure.
Nice.
Speaking of pressure, Montreal decided they need more pressure from that defensive line. And turns out Sean Oakman's not going to become a GM in the Arena Football League, as once reported. He is going to the Montreal Alouettes.
Shocker.
I was shocked by this signing.
Shocker.
I was hoping he might come back to Toronto.
Me too.
I mean, obviously, Toronto picked up two really strong defensive linemen this week. But the Sean Oakman of Montreal, I think this makes Montreal better.
Oh,
I think Montreal, they know Sean. Let's be real here. Sean Lemon is not coming back. We spoke about this, 4 or 5 weeks ago. And Sean Lemon's not coming back. He was also just added another 2-game suspension for failing a drug test. He's not coming back. I mean, I don't know how you can fail a drug test when you're being suspended in knowledge play. Anyways, I think the CFO just wants to make sure he's gone. And if you are looking for more info on that, we will post that on our socials. Chazzy really got into details on why gambling in sports and playing in sports cannot go hand in hand. So it was a really interesting clip from the Streakers Island podcast, and we will post that on our socials. And once I get that up there, I'll put the link in the comment section just for you. But this is a great move for Montreal. Absolutely love it. Exactly what Montreal needs to replace Sean Lemon. More for your money. If you're an Alouettes fan, how excited are you to get a guy like Sean Oakman for not just his play on the field, but his leadership?
That's how excited I am. This is a huge move for Montreal, putting some veteran leadership in your defense. Well, we placed Lemon was the real veteran leader of that defense in the past, and now I'm arguing a better character guy, the same leader ability. It's pretty amazing, and I'm very sad to see him leave the Argos, and I regret not buying a jersey of him as Argo when I could.
Mind you, did you know you can buy former Argo player jerseys now? They'll still
but where do I find it?
On the Real Sports Store website. You can still get former Argo. I can begin an Enoch Mwamba jersey right now still.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Something they offer. So keep that in mind, CFL fans. But let's move on to the NHL, as we've been talking a lot about player movement. And as we all know, the trade deadline's coming up. And unfortunately, as much as we saw, Sidney Crosby has not lost his edge whatsoever.
Crosby.
But the Pittsburgh Penguins have lost a lot, including a lot of games. So they're going to be sellers. This has already been confirmed on multiple different outlets. Does Sidney Crosby get moved? That's my main thing that I'm wondering about. Is it time for Crosby to move on from Pittsburgh and go somewhere where he could really try to win a cup again? I hate to see a guy that is this talented play on a team that's this bad. We watched it on Wednesday night. When he plays with good players, he is still the best player on the ice. Yeah. Yes, he was playing with Nathan McKinnon, but guess who was driving the offense? It was Sid, the mid-age kid. Yeah. So, Chazzy, I want to throw this to you. Do you think Crosby might be willing to move his no trade and actually want to go somewhere where either he thinks he can win a cup now or make a bigger impact on the roster?
It's crazy we're even having this discussion because it just brings us back to what the late 80s when Gretzky got moved out to LA, like Sid the Kid on the move. But like you said, Pittsburgh's going to be potential sellers this trade. And we saw it today. Sid the Kid needs another chance to win a Stanley Cup and go deep into the playoffs, if that's with Pittsburgh or not with Pittsburgh. But yeah, it's hard to even comprehend the thought of Crosby not in Pittsburgh, but we might see it. It'll be interesting to see what Kyle does.
I never know with Dubas. He made, as a GM for the Leafs, he'd either make the greatest trades or the worst trades. So if you trade Sidney Crosby, even though he's older, you got to get quite a bit for him, I would imagine. Like, I'm talking multiple first rounders,
yeah.
Prospects.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see him being moved for second and third round draft picks. I don't care that he's in his mid-30s. Guy's still the best player in the league. I'm calling it right now. Yeah, Connor McDavid's the most electric player in the league. Nathan McKinnon's the fastest player in the league. Leon Draisaitl is the best scorer in the league. Sidney Crosby is the best all-around player in the league. Offense, defense, special teams, he's still the guy. So I would love to see him go to a cup contender. I don't know how the heck Colorado swings it, but can you imagine if Colorado gets him? Automatic cup contender now if they get Crosby. I argue any team that gets Sidney Crosby becomes better. It doesn't matter who you have on your roster. You look at Toronto, for example, with Matthews and Tavares. I don't care. You put Crosby there, that team's automatically better.
You almost put them. You almost put them favorites. You almost have to put them favorites for the cup. Whoever gets them. If he gets moved.
If he gets moved, we're not confirming that Sidney Crosby's being traded here. Do not clip that and say that he's being traded. I'm looking at you, Steve, with your AI capabilities. Don't do that. That'd be mean. But more for your money, if Crosby's on the move, and we've already said Montreal before, where else could you see him go?
Well, this is what I was going to say. If you asked me this question a couple of weeks ago, I would say there's no way in AT double hockey sticks Crosby gets traded. However, after witnessing that Renton trade from Colorado or Carolina was mind-boggling to me, I feel like this is a year that any trade is possible. So I think it's quite possible that Crosby gets traded. And you know what? I'm going to say something crazy because we've talked about Montreal with Chazzy with love. I would love to see Crosby finish his career in Montreal where he's a fan of and really be the leadership for Nick Suzuki that he needs. I think it would be phenomenal. I would also see Sidney Crosby. I don't know who Crosby is, but anyway, I would also love to see Crosby. Wow, I said it again. Sidney Crosby and Nova Scotia. That's definitely a blooper wheel. And with Nathan McKinnon, the East Coast, or I can see him in Boston with Brad Marchand because Boston has not been the same without Patrice Bergeron. And if they could get Crosby there, they could be the cup contender. But I'm going to say this once. I'm going to say this now. I think the best fit for Sidney Crosby, that no one's talking about yet, and call me crazy, is the Washington Capitals. That would be insane if Crosby sets up Ovechkin to get the goal that beats Gretzky's record. I know Backstrom's done it multiple years, but he's unavailable, unfortunately, due to injury. And it could happen. Crosby's got a very low cap space to keep a winning competitive team. Washington's number one division. Ovechkin wants another cup to add to his wing. And Crosby and Ovechkin started off hitting each other, but as they got older, they got getting kind of close to each other. And imagine if while you're Washington and your top two centers are Crosby and Strome. That would be incredible. That would be a Stanley Cup winning team right there. So give up 3 first-round draft picks, whatever the bleep you got to give up, and get Sidney Crosby to set up Ovi for the game-winning record goal to beat the Great One.
Okay.
Boom! Mind blown.
That's not going to happen.
I'm just saying, yeah.
It won't. I do not see Crosby and Ovechkin on the same team. You know where I would love to see Crosby go?
Boston was good one, too.
Detroit.
Ooh.
Detroit needs one piece to get over that hump. Imagine your top 2 centers are Crosby and then Larkin.
Yeah.
Crosby and Kane playing together. That would be fun. I really feel Detroit is missing that leader, that veteran that's going to motivate the boys to get going and just really keep those consistent long winning streaks. You bring in Sidney Crosby to Detroit.
America's team?
They go on a cup run. They go on a legitimate cup run. With Sidney Crosby on that team, they go back to at least the conference finals.
Well, we're having this crazy conversation. Let's say it. Well, about Sid the Crosby as a Maple Leaf?
No. They can't afford
it. You have enough cap issues already. So
what are we doing? Are we trading Marner for Crosby a 1v1?
No, but I'm saying move John T as a third-line center. You trade Domi and Robinson and $1 million first-round picks and some other way to dump cap like Ryan Reeves and whatever. You make Pittsburgh eat half the salary because Kyle Doofus is a doofus, and just make it happen. Holy
Number one, it
moly,
won't happen because Dubas and the Leafs do not trade with each other anymore.
Yeah, I know.
It won't happen. Number two, Chazzy says the Leafs are already in cap hell, so that's not happening either.
Yeah,
I would love to, and we don't even know if Crosby's getting moved yet. I think for Pittsburgh, if they do any moves, they just want prospects and picks. Because I don't think they're close. If you keep Crosby, then you got to retool and not rebuild. I also think we could see Erik Karlsson on the move. And there was another one, Chazzy, that you were saying that you think could be moved out of Pittsburgh.
Raquel.
Yeah, we could see Raquel as well. But that could be interesting there, just to see on what's happening. I honestly hope Crosby gets moved.
I know we're talking long about Sid, but what do you do with Malcolm? If you are
Malcolm, the other one too.
Who knows?
Well, do you
put package deal to Detroit?
No. Put Gino play with Ovi.
Oh, yeah. I could see that more than Crosby. Yeah, I guess if you move one, you got to move the other.
And I'll say Carson looked pretty good tonight.
So that's something that's got to get done. But let's move on to the NFL here. And Travis Kelce did not look very pleased with himself. Watched a little bit of his podcast, and he said he just felt he let his whole team down.
He did.
But then they also did try to spin it back to all the records he broke. He didn't seem to care about the records. But is he done? Was that the last game we see Travis Kelce play in the NFL?
Sorry, what did he say? Sorry, where was his headspace? Like, what did he say before?
He just seemed devastated about the way he played in that Super Bowl game.
So he's saying he didn't show up? Is that
basically? So do you think he's playing another NFL game?
Well, he's under contract for at least another year.
That doesn't mean anything. You can just be like, ain't no lie, baby, bye.
30. Well, no, he could walk away. Like we've seen many stud NFL players just walk away. But I think he's got one more year. I don't see him going out he got blown out. I don't know if that's going to sit well with him, just with his competitiveness and Mahomes and him, right? I see him back for at least one more.
But I wonder, though, with the podcast, everything he's doing now, and the way he's more in the entertainment world, do you maybe see him retire for that reason? We saw Jason Kelce retire off a Super Bowl loss. Mind you, he played well that game, whereas he says he just filled the stat line. No one knows if he played well or not because he was a center. But I say I love Jason Kelce. Actually, all the Kelce brothers, I like him a lot more. But I could see this being the end for Travis Kelce. I really do. He struggled all year. He had a couple good playoff games. He broke some more records. I don't really know what else he has left to do. He's won multiple Super Bowls. He's going to go down as the greatest playoff receiver in NFL history, breaking the Jerry Rice record and the Gronkowski record. More for your money. Shake your head all you want. He broke the records. You're saying Ovechkin's going to be the greatest goal scorer once he breaks Gretzky's record. So if you're just going by numbers don't lie, Mr. Calculator, the numbers don't lie. I don't think there's anything left for Travis Kelce to do unless the sour taste in his mouth really bothers him that much. And I think as it moves on a little further, I don't think it will. I honestly think he's done. I don't see him playing another game in the NFL.
I disagree. I agree with my CEO, Jazzy, here. I think this is just a way to add more publicity to the fire. It's like you said, Jacob, he's an entertainer first. Okay. No one's talking about a Super Bowl victory. So people want to talk about his comeback. Kind of like Tom Brady, he did the exact same thing. He retired and came back a year later and won more Super Bowls, right? I could see Kelce doing the same thing. I think if he didn't talk about if he was going to come back or not, no one would be talking about him, right? That's because he's still under contract. So let's be honest. He wants to bring the attention. He doesn't want to go off on a loss like that, and he still contributed to the team in multiple games throughout the years, throughout the game this year and the playoffs this year. I think what's more likely to happen is I could see Taylor Swift waking up with Travis Kelce.
No offense, I don't really care.
I really could. God, I think it's going to bring the whole farce in the start.
You know what? We don't need to become the Streakers Island bachelorette party.
See, no, I think the Super Bowl on these guys as a report card at the end of their career. What do they report, or what are they sort of calculated on, or or looked at most, it's the Super Bowl. I think Tom Brady said he had a segment earlier this week. He just went off 5 minutes of just pure gold on sort of the mentality and everything that he went through. And he says, yeah, at the end of your career, this is where you're looked at on your report card is Super Bowl and how you handled yourself and what you did. And that's why I don't see this sitting well with the competitiveness in Kelsey. His brother, yeah, he said, okay, we lost, but I gave it all I had, right? So he was fine with his performance. I don't know. I think it would just eat at him. The magnitude of the Super Bowl, it'd be hard to not give it one more year.
I mean, I think Tom Brady talking about the gold is as golden as Jacob and Cole's $760,000 watch. Wow, what a watch that was.
I was not a fan, but I guess I just have cheap taste. But let's move off the NFL and head into the baseball season here. We got the Toronto Blue Jays, only Canadian team. And let's just be real here. The last couple of years have been a disappointment. They really haven't lived up to the expectations. They've reloaded somewhat. We're not going to go through their whole roster right now, but they've added some young guys. They've added some depth to the bullpen, but I don't feel they really added that ace in the hole, which I felt is what they needed.
That bullpen definitely needs to be bolstered.
100%. And Bichette and Guerrero are both apparently healthy by reports. So I'm going to ask you, Chazzy, since you were like, baseball. Will the Toronto Blue Jays be better this year? Do you think they're at least a playoff team this year?
You'd hope that they're going to be better this year. Injuries last year, that bullpen. Well, mind you, you brought in some key guys. You got some veteran key guys. So, yeah, we'll see. But you got a lot of young guys. I'm interested to see what this Joey kid does in the outfield. He seems to be maybe one of those regular day players that they're talking about. So we got a lot of outfielders that can hit the ball, but we'll see what sort of nine player roster they're going to put on the field.
Hey, I remember though last year they weren't hitting the ball that well either.
Injuries, they just had no consistency at all.
Yeah, but I look at a guy like Bichette especially. I think this is a make or break year for him.
Yes,
I feel Guerrero, when he's healthy, is at least putting up good numbers. Bichette, it's just something about him that rubs me the wrong way. This is going to sound funny to maybe some people. To me, he's the Mitch Marner of the Toronto Blue Jays. He just doesn't seem to elevate his game at the key moment. I see Chazzy shaking his head.
What are you talking about? That guy's the most clutch double hitter.
Yeah, but I'm more worried about his defensive abilities. And there's times I just feel he's not making the play that he needs to make. I don't know. It's just something about Bichette that it's something about him that just doesn't sit well with me. So I think this is definitely a make or break year for Bo Bichette. But more for your money, what are your thoughts here? Because we've seen attendance at Jays games too up and down. Is this a make or break year for the whole team?
Well, I think this season was as disappointing as the $28 Mary Brown sandwich at the Rogers Center. Okay? It was a really disappointing year. And I'll just come out and say it. The Blue Jays are not short money. Rogers owns the Blue Jays, okay? There's a lot of money to be spent there. And there's no salary cap in baseball. And you're the only Major League Baseball team in Canada. Spend the money, bring in the break free agents. Let's go. Let's get this done. They brought in some offense, which is great. I agree with Chazzy. They need that ace caliber pitcher. That's what they're really missing. They need that confident closer that can go in a ninth inning with a 2-1 league and bring it home like the Ace Roy Holiday back in the day, right? That's really what this team is missing. Oh, that ever great guy that they got when Batista Price was his name? Yeah, Price. You know, that he was a great addition. I wish they kept him. And the Blue Jays haven't been really the same. You look at the players like Bichette and Guerrero, maybe that's where you're talking about, Jacob. They're great guys. I'm not slamming them on nothing. But they don't have the same swagger as Batista and Donaldson and Price and, Kevin Bauer, right? They had a really good team back then. I feel like you give them one more year, they could have made the playoff run. And they blew up, I think, a year or two early. And we haven't been the same since. That was about what? A long time, 5-6 years ago now. So most of those players retire. I think Donaldson's still playing a little bit, but not the same caliber. So I think you got to bring in some free agents, spend some money. You've given this core group 4 or 5 years of build. It hasn't happened yet. So maybe this is the time you trade Bolsett and bring in another big name.
Well, I'm not trading Bichette yet. I'm giving him the year.
Yeah.
Same with Guerrero. I think these are make or break years for both of these guys. And like I said,
we've been saying that for what, 4 or 5 years now.
Well, you're saying about Toronto too. We still have Marner, Matthews, and Nylander, and Tavares, and Riley.
If I was the GM, I would have traded one of them by now.
And at the end of the day, the Jays are going to at least give it one more year. And I really do hope that this team is better. Time will tell. And don't worry, fans. We will be diving much deeper into baseball once we get in the spring training. I'm excited to hit
We need a new coach, too.
I'm excited to hit some Blue Jay games this year. And yeah, I was surprised that we're running it back with the same coach. But I'm not surprised because we have to go to a break because I can tell I'm parched. Dan's parched. Chazzy, I know you want some milk.
What does
I'm just assuming Chazzy loves milk. I have no idea.
What does parts mean?
Thirsty.
Oh yeah, I'm thirsty.
So we got to get Dan Moore. We got to get Dan Moore a dictionary and a thesaurus during this commercial break. So when we come back, we're gonna get into some Leafs talk and about one of the biggest trades we see in the NHL and where is it at now. We'll be right back right after this break. The Streakers Island podcast is here, baby. We're talking NHL, CFL, NFL, and of course, those grassroots sports and so much more. Make sure you tune in every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Welcome to the island. Welcome back, everybody, to the Streakers Island podcast, where we put the pod in the cast and the cast in the pod. You know what I'm saying, everyone?
Fantasy.
And the fan and fantasy. Man, we really do a lot. We're busy.
We do. I thought it was
let's get into someone who should be a busy beaver, which is Brad Tree living in his roster management on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And same with the chief, the coach himself, Craig Berube. More for Your Money and I were recently at a Marlies game with our good friend Adam. Shout out to Adam. What up, dog? And let's get into what we kind of saw, which Kyle Clifford, he still is that enforcer that we all know and love. So this brings me to the question. Ryan Reeves has only had one fight all year and really hasn't fit the roster that well. Is it time to send Revo down and bring Clifford up? Because here comes Clifford coming to my house. He's the big red dog. Chazzy, I want to start with you because you're the non-Leaf fan here. Do you think that I'm nuts and saying maybe it's time to send Revo down and try Clifford in that enforcer role? Or do you maybe think you kind of like what I'm saying? You're like, yes.
Yeah, no, that enforcer position is unique. And yeah, why not bring up Kyle and trade at Reeves? Like, because he's a little more offensive, if I'm not mistaken, Kyle over Reeves. Shake up the lineup a bit and see what happens. But yeah, give the kid a chance to drop the gloves. Reeves, he's the one that wanted to fight in Montreal there a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Ryan Reeves as a leader, and I even say if you send him down the Marlies, you bring him back up for the playoffs just to have him around the boys. But it hasn't worked this year. And so, Dan, I want to throw this to you. I know you've been a huge Kyle Clifford fan his whole career since he was a Barrie Colt.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe it is time for Kyle Clifford to get back into this lineup?
100%. Even if he's not playing every night, just to have him in the leadership locker room. He did win the Stanley Cup in LA. He was a part of that big Toronto-Los Angeles trade. And I was shocked when I saw him at the Marlies game. He can still skate because he's getting up there in age. I thought, maybe he's slowing down. He can still skate really good. And boy, when he gave a KO knockout, he can really fight. And I feel bad saying this. I love Reno. I was a huge fan of his. I was so excited when Toronto bought him in free agency. I love his Taco Bell commercial on Instagram. I think he's great for the boys, but it hasn't really worked this year. I think, unfortunately, when he got that 5-game suspension that wasn't deserved, he kind of lost his swagger and his mojo, and it kind of lost his aggression. It's like when you watch him, he's almost afraid to do a hit now because he's afraid to get suspended or fined. Like he said, it cost his kids Christmas, right? So, I feel bad saying this, and I look at it as a business point too, right? Kyle Clifford's going to be a minimum league contract. We know he was 2.7, but I think they scaled down his cap hit to about 1.4. He's a 1.4 cap hit. You get Clifford in there with 775. You just clear 715 cap space. Boom, there's another seventh defenseman spot, right?
Well, I was gonna say that too. Ryan Reeves cap hits 1.35 mil versus Kyle Clifford's the league minimum. So you got to look at it that way too. It is giving you a little more flexibility on your cap, not much, but that could be the difference when you're trying to move someone else that maybe it just gives you enough room.
Like Sidney Crosby.
Sure. But let's talk about some guys they might move. And Alex Steeves was a guy that he set the Marlies record for most goals out of any Marley. That night we were there, and that kid can play. Yeah. Like you feel like other teams, he's in the NHL. So is he trade bait? I'm going to say yes. I think it might be the time the Leafs move on from him because he's never been able to really crack that Leaf roster. It's kind of like Nazem Kadri back in the day, and I think on the right team, he could be an easy third-line center. I think he's got a lot of potential. So I think if you move him for a guy like Luke Schenn out of Nashville, that would be a trade I think could work out for both sides. Nashville is desperate for anything.
Yeah.
That team just flat out not work. And Toronto really needs that guy to replace Hakanpää because I'm not even sure if Hakanpää's ever going to play.
Hakanpää.
Yes, Dan Hakanpää. But I would love this. I think it could help him get Morgan Riley going as well. But another guy I wonder if you could see on the move for the Leafs, and I hope not. But Dan, I want to throw this to you. Are you willing to trade Fraser Minten to get that last key piece you need to go on a cup run?
That's a tough one.
I know.
I say no. And the reason why I say no is Toronto has traded a lot of first-round picks, so rental players like Nick Foligno. Oh, God, what a disaster that was, okay? So, they don't have many top prospects left. They will have to trade a first-round pick this year, 100%, to get that missing piece for a deep cup one with the Cole 4. So you need some good prospects because eventually you're going to have to trade one of the Cole 4, right? So you need someone to step in. I'll tell you who I would trade right now.
Nick Robertson.
When Nick Robertson won, what? What you said?
Morgan Riley with a first rounder.
No. I would trade. I'm just talking young guys now. I would 100% trade Nick Robertson, and I would 100%. I forget his name at the moment.
You're thinking Easton Cowan.
Thank you, Easton Cowan.
Read your mind.
I would trade Easton Cowan now instead of Fraser Minten.
No, look, you're making me yawn with your ridiculousness. You're not trading Easton Cowan. The guy has been electric in the OHL.
He sucked when it counted, okay? So what are Maple Leafs famous for? The Maple Leafs are famous for not getting it done in the playoffs. So you got this great prospect that did nothing in a playoff trial tournament. Why the bleep are we keeping him? Oh, come on. You know I'm white. That's why you got it backwards. That's why you got the back showing first, because you know I'm white. Okay, now I got it right.
You're not right. Easton Cowan is a guy that he's got a lot of upside with the right coaching, which what you got to do with young players, will turn into an electric player. Imagine if the Leafs traded Matty Nyes because he didn't score a game-winning goal in overtime during the NCAA tournament, the Final Four. And now, look, he's going to hit 30 goals this year. Can you imagine if we gave up on Bobby McManus? It took him a couple extra years to find his rhythm when we brought him in, or Tyler Bozak back in the day? We'd be regretting it. The Leafs have the worst habit of trading the wrong guy. You do not get rid of Easton Cowan until you at least has a year or two in the AHL to see what he can really do.
Why are we giving up on Fraser Minten already?
I wouldn't, but I'm asking if you would.
No.
Just why not? This is what we do on the Streakers Island podcast. Jazzy, would you? I want you to think about one of your prospects in, let's say Montreal. I know you're a Habs fan. Let's say Montreal was right there to win that cup this year. and you felt you needed one more piece, would you be willing to trade one of your top prospects to get it?
Right now, no.
I mean,
would
no,
not.
if the Habs were in the Leafs position right now, would you do it?
No, but if Turco Rask always comes up in my mind anytime you have the Leafs in trades in those scenarios. When because look what he did once you traded your top goaltender prospect of, I don't know what that was going on, but no, I would not. I would not. Well, for Montreal right now, yeah, we're young, and I would not trade that young stud if this was in our position right now to win. I'd bring someone in mid range, but I wouldn't get rid of your stud. Like I said, Turco Rask for Leaf fans. I'm sure a lot still lose sleep over that one.
That hurts, Bull. That's unfair.
And, if I'm Toronto too, I think I'm more willing to give up a draft pick than I'm willing to give up a prospect. You already know so much about the prospect. Sometimes the first overall pick is a total bust. Look at Neil Yakupov. Look at Alexander Daigle. These are guys that are supposed to break the league. Or even look at Lafreniere. I'm not saying he's a bust, but he certainly hasn't been what they thought he would be. Look at, I would even argue, and sorry, Chazzy, I would argue Slafkovsky in that conversation as well. He was expected to be a point per game guy. He still hasn't really found his feet. Yeah, I'm not saying he won't. His feet are attached to his legs. He's just got to look down, and then he'll find them. But speaking of looking down, let's look down the standings a little bit in that division and head over to the Ottawa Senators.
I don't know, soon enough, you might be looking up to them.
Yes, very true. But the Ottawa Senators, the last few years, you kept feeling like they're almost there. I think they're there. So are you buyers coming into the deadline, or are you sellers? If I'm the Ottawa GM, I'm a buyer. I'm not giving up any of my youth. Like, I'm not giving up my Stutzlas or my Norris or Sanderson. Definitely not trading my goaltending because I actually really like the 3 goalies in Ottawa. But if you can bring in, I'm just going to say, if you can move some draft picks and bring in Steven Stamkos, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Or go get Sidney Crosby. Why not? But I think if you bring in another veteran electrifying guy, I think Ottawa's a cup contender.
I'm going to take a page out of your book, Mr. Jamo. I am calling the New York Islanders, and I'm putting back Shade's favorite player, Davis Parlo. Am I saying his name right?
Pajot,
thank you. I'm bringing Pajot back to Ottawa. I think Ottawa regrets trading him. He has not worked out in the Islanders. The Islanders are going to be sellers for sure.
Oh, no.
So let's get it done.
The Islanders are not for sure sellers. They're a bubble team right now. They're on the cusp. Hey, they were red hot going into this Four Nations break. Mark my words. The Islanders at trade deadline, clip it here at around 1 hour and 6 minutes in the Streakers Island podcast. The Islanders will be only 2 to 4 points out of a playoff spot by the deadline.
So they're going to be buyers, according to you.
I think they're going to be as is. They're only going to make moves that can make them, if it's a guy that they can sign for term. We know Lou Lamoriello likes hockey trades, not buying, not selling.
Yeah.
But I think definitely the Ottawa Senators are going to be buying. Chazzy, what are your thoughts here? Do you think the nation's capital is now ready to take that next step? Or do you want to see what this team does as is for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I don't see them making too many moves. Maybe bringing in a piece like a Lysell or a Donato just for a little bit more offense. But I don't see them doing too much to break up this team. Let them run, see what they can do here. Now we're coming in on the other end of this all-star break. Like, it's go time, and they got some studs on that core team.
They do. You look at a lot of the guys in Ottawa, and I think the patience is finally paying off. You got your goaltending sorted out with Volmar. You got your core with Giroux and Stützle and Norris, Sanderson, Chabot, Pinto. They got some good players on the
leaders, like good leaders. Yes,
good leaders. So I think now it's the time for Ottawa. They can make a run. I'm willing to move draft picks. I'm not willing to move players. I don't think they're concerned about keeping draft picks at this point.
Wouldn't it be awesome we saw Toronto and Ottawa in the playoffs again?
Oh, it'd be electric.
Oh,
the only thing that would suck is one of them's going to have to go out first round.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, coming back to your point about giving up the draft picks, still some of those kids are still a year or two away, so they still got time. So how many first-round draft picks do we actually see teams keeping after a couple of years? They're typically
that's true too, and we've been seeing some crazy trades in the NHL of late. especially the Rantanen Natchez move. And this is a trade that I wanted to kind of look back at more. When this trade happened, we all said, what the hell is Colorado doing? Well, apparently Colorado looked into their magic 8 ball and saw something we didn't. I want to compare the two players right now. So Rantanen in 6 games got 1 goal and 1 assist for 2 points. He's really struggled to find his rhythm in Carolina. Natchez, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points in 8 games. Natchez has fit right in. It did not take him long. McKinnon, I don't know if he drank some coffee and woke up and realized that, hey, he's being paid millions of dollars to play hockey. Stop crying about it and just play with your new teammate. But it's working in Colorado. So I'm going to say this as of right now. I think Colorado won this trade as of right now. Yeah. Especially, let's say, if Carolina can't re-sign Rantanen and he walks and you lost Natchez, who's one of your best players. You look at their stats all year, they're pretty comparable. And I think Natchez is a guy, he's grittier too. I really like him. I think he's an awesome fit in Colorado. Yeah, I think Colorado, I'm going to say this now. As of right now, Colorado won this trade. More for your money, do you agree with me? Or do you think Rantanen's just going to take some time, but he's going to get going?
I think it's too early a call, bud. What it comes down to is it comes down who does what in the playoffs. And the other big piece of the trade that we're not talking about is Taylor Hall. And that's going to determine who wins and who loses this trade. Because Carolina got the second big piece in Taylor Hall. Colorado basically just got Natchez. So that's my thought.
That's true. Taylor Hall this year has 9 goals, 16 assists for 25 points in 52 games.
Yeah, but give him time to Carolina.
Carolina, he's got 1 assist in 6 games.
But give him time.
But give him time. He could. Because we got to remember, we go back. Taylor Hall has had some very good
90 point years. He had 97 points in New Jersey where he won the Hart Ross Trophy.
He had 93 points back in 17-18. I'd say his last really good year was Boston, where he had 20 goals, 41 assists for 61 points in 21-22, which realistically isn't that long ago. So, yeah, even when he only played 10 games last year in Chicago, he did manage 4 points in 10 games. That's not terrible. That's on pace for about 44, 45 points. And Taylor Hall is a difference maker. He's a guy that can make a big difference. So we will have to wait and see. But as of right now, I still feel Colorado got the better end on this trade. I like their moves more. I think it makes them a better team now than what they were before. I really do.
There's a cap space of them for sure. Enough cap space of Sidney Crosby, maybe.
Man, you really want Crosby moved. You know what? Crosby, I'm going to tell you this. If you get traded, I think more of your money will pay for your movers.
No.
What if he comes to Toronto? Then will you pay for his movers?
I will what? With my $5?
Yes. You'll move him.
I'll pick him up myself.
You'll pick him up yourself in the Benz. Can't go wrong with that. Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, I actually feel Colorado has got a chance now. 3 months ago, I would have said Colorado's not winning the Cup. Between bringing in Natchez and Wedgwood, I think they brought in the pieces that they need, established the goaltending, and tweaked their top 6 enough. So, yeah, I actually starting to really, really like what Colorado is doing. But I just want to throw this out to you guys. Who's a team that people aren't thinking are a Cup contender? Like, we all know everyone talks about the same couple teams about Cup contenders. Give me a Cup contender that you think that no one's calling for. Chazzy, I'm going to start with you. I'm putting you on the spot first.
Long Island.
Cry about it.
Right off the Long Island, the Islanders.
What?
Yeah.
They seem to be the team in playoffs no one really talks about, but they're getting to the second round. They're making a push. If they make a couple moves here, but they don't usually they make some small moves and they get deep into the playoffs. So. And you got Wall behind the net. I don't know. That's going to be a tough team. Closer we get to the playoffs, like you said. By playoffs, are they in? Are they just sitting on the outside? And you got the Rangers coming up too. But that Islanders, they could definitely sneak in there and get into that top 4 conference final. No problem.
All right, more for everybody. Who's one team that you think that no one's talking about right now that could actually go on a Cup run?
Well, I don't know what drugs you guys are smoking on your side of the island, but there are a lot of people want them.
You got to climb the trees.
I was going to say Washington, but I think people are talking about Washington winning the cup. So I'm guessing that doesn't count, does it, Mr. J-Mo?
Sure, I'll give you Washington because I don't think anyone expected them to have the year that they're having.
But I'll give you one other one because that one's kind of iffy. I'm going to keep Canada here and say Calgary.
I was going to say Calgary, but go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Well,
Calgary, eh?
For Jacob.
You know what? The reason why I'm thinking Calgary, and I'll give you a second team now, but let me talk about Calgary so I can think in the background. Reason why I'm thinking Calgary, and I guess Dan and I, we have brother telepathy power. Some people think we're older, but we're not. 5 years apart. Who's the older one? Anyways, Calgary is the type of team that's gritty. They're getting really good goaltending from Dustin Wolf. If you continue to get really good goaltending and win some gritty games, we know in the playoffs that's really how you win. And I think the Calgary Flames could be a legitimate cup contender where they get to at least to the third round because they're built for playoff hockey. Or they could crumble in the first round because half the guys have never been in the playoffs yet. Who knows? But you got Nazem Kadri as a part of that leader group. I think they're serious business. Yeah. And there's another team I'm going to give you guys who's been up and down this year, but I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Lightning. If they make the dance, anything can happen.
Contender?
Cool. Wow. Ryan McDonough, he looks really good.
If Vasilevsky gets hot, they can go on a cup run because Vasilevsky's the type of guy that'll steal a series. Never mind a game, he'll steal a series. Yeah. We saw it with Florida last year in Bobrovsky. Let's be real here. Without Bobrovsky stealing half those games, Florida doesn't win the cup.
Well, let's just be fair here. Since Jacob and I had R2, and your first one, Chazzy, maybe you're off the drugs you're on. Do you want a second pick? Yeah, you want
a second pick?
Yeah, I want a second
that no one's talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we could go the Red Wings. Red Wings make a couple moves. America's team, aren't they?
Come on. They got to go get Sidney Crosby to play with Patty Cade. But you know what we got to do? We got to go. Thank you so much for joining the Streakers Island podcast. We're good for more Streakers Island content. Make sure you follow us. But before we go, there's something I forgot. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting old. I'm 30, okay? We have an island mindset here on the island. You can see Dan's very excited to share his mindset, even though he looks green like a Smurf. We're going to get him a new webcam, guys, I promise. But more for your money, what is your island mindset for tonight?
Well, we were talking about when the J-Mo and our friend, Mr. Adam, who might be a guest on the show one day. You never know. Now we got this fancy new software. We can have more guests, so stay tuned for that, folks. But we went to the Toronto Murray game. You can play AHL on the Streakers app, which is amazing. We went to the Murray game, and on the way back from the Murray game, funny enough, it was a half-decent crowd by the time it got filled up. And we were all trying to climb on the GO train, trying to save that $40 in parking down at Exhibition Place. And when we were fighting to get on the GO train, the three of us were trying to get on. We were in the middle of a family friend group pack, and there was a pack of 25. And we were trying to get on the train, us three, but the guy in the group of 25 asked me, hey, are you okay letting us on this train because we all want to travel together? So I looked at the boys and I said, hey, we're having a good time. What's another 20 minutes? So I said, yes, you go ahead and take our spot. And well, we waited 20 minutes, but we helped out that family fun group out because they all got on the same train together. So fact of the story is sometimes it's worth losing a little bit of time in your life to help someone else in need in their life, no matter how small that need is.
That's a very good point. And to add to that, did you know at the Exhibition Go, they have heated boxes?
That was sick.
Cable with plugs and USB ports to charge your electronic devices. So you can't go wrong waiting. All they need is Wi-Fi and a margarita bar, and they're set. But we got to go because clearly I need to get myself a margarita. Thank you very much for watching the Streakers Island podcast. As I said about a minute and a half ago, make sure you follow us on all the social medias. Give the Streakers Gaming app a chance. It's a lot of fun, and you're about to see a lot more new stuff on there. Make sure you start watching the tag 1v1.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
What does that mean? Wow. What does that mean? Wow. Anyways, thank you very much for watching and listening to the Streakers Island podcast. We'll see you back again on Tuesday for the podcast.
Bye-bye.